Welcome back to the program. Yesterday, the U.S. presidential elections intensified with key swing states looking to determine the outcome of a keenly contested race between the former President Donald Trump and the VP Kamala Harris. Now, in the coming moments, more results continue to trickle in, but an ex-Nigerian ambassador to the U.S. has said whatever the outcome is, he doesn't think it would affect Nigeria's stake in the U.S. We've also seen key and influential Nigerians who own dual citizenship going back to the US to cast their votes. But in keeping with our conversation around stories in the news this morning, let's come back to our studio where we're now joined by Dr. Aliyu Ilias. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Now, the US presidential election continues to garner interest from Nigeria. Many say it's because we borrowed our system of democracy from them in a way, and people look at it from the credibility of the elections as well. The use of electronic voting, mail voting, and the controversial electoral college votes which continue to decide the elections. In keeping with how you've seen the elections unfold, I care to make any comments on what the newspapers in Nigeria are reflecting as headlines this morning?
Right, I think it's a good thing that when we watch them, see what happens, because most time we want to study and follow their way of doing things. However, it's quite challenging and it's interesting at the same time. Anybody who becomes the president of US is world president. Is it by default? I think it's by default because they control a lot of things. However, we have Democrat and the Republic, and we have a Republican, and we have seen the way they are actually voting. There are different ways of voting. Not Nigeria that it's only one day, within 2 days, then there is a lot of but they've given gap. People can really cast their. But whoever becomes the president, Nigeria remains Nigeria. The only thing is that how about our relation? I'm not even keen about direct relationship to Nigeria. I'm thinking about world as it is now, because if you look at world, a lot of things is ravaging, and these two people seem to have two different ideology, and that's my way. If you see the Kamala Harris, she's not speaking out against LGBTQ. She's not speaking against abortion, and if you look at the other side, Trump will come and say, no, I know two gender, male and female. So it's it's now left to the Americans, to look at what they prefer. The only thing is, Trump will always say American first, and I think that's what gets people worried. But for me, I think it's a good idea. When you love your country, you want to start everything possible to the advantage of your country. So I think it's a good one. But I only hope, as a global citizen, that after the election there won't be little issues there, because they're not too big for violence. You recall after Trump lost the other time,
the Capitol insurrection.
A lot of things happened that in fact they have to take him to court. A lot of things happen. So we hope the winner will be declared soon, and there will be peace in the whole world.
Now, it's also important to note that much like we have in Nigeria, the Republicans and the Democratic Party are the two key figures. There are also two other parties that many persons are not too aware of, the Green Party and the Independent Party, which, according to the build-up on electoral college votes, received no votes at all up until this morning. Many complain when we put it in the Nigerian context and we look at the APC, PDP, even in the Americas, there's that dominance in the landscape of parties and how persons choose to side candidates. Do you think it's not an anomaly in some sense?
I recall late Chief Gani Fawemi, who took Nigeria to court, that there should be multi-party system. So for me, multi-party system sometimes really don't allow us to see the best out of some party, because if you look at America now, they have two dominant party, and it's not that those Green Party and Independent Party does not have maybe supporters, but they have key into the two ideology, and it's working out for them. For me, I think having 18 political parties in Nigeria is still sometimes a waste of material, because some of them will not even have a vote a position they will win in particular election. But if you look at Nigeria too, we have I think 3 leading parties now. Okay, 4 we say. We have PDP, APC, APGA and Labour Party. I think these 4 political parties has their governorship. So with time, I think maybe with ideology, I think ideology is our problem. We don't have a clear ideology. I think if you have two ideological parties that have true ideology, people will key into 2 of them going forward. But it's also good, let there be competition.
Now, Nigeria has also borrowed this culture of having key political actors switching parties. whilst the APC would say it's largely a welfarian party, we've seen prominent figures who were part of the PDP in previous administrations switching to the APC. And when it comes to cutting out a clear ideology, much like we see in the Americas,
Right.
why do you think it is very hard for us to replicate that in the Nigerian democratic sphere?
Right. You recall one political party chairman said, once you come to our party, your sin is forgiven. So that could be a factor that is making people to actually change political party. I also saw this man, doing Okupe, was it 3 days ago, who now went to greet Mr. President, someone who has been a supporter of Peter Obi, who just went to Mr. President and started saying all what Mr. President is doing is just the best he has ever seen. So you look at people without ideology like that, you discover that we must grow to that level where will be a good ideology. I mean, a direct ideology. Perhaps let's also sensitize we citizens that sometimes it is not about the national party. Somebody could be within your locality, and that's why some of us are agitating that the electoral system in local government need to be reviewed. Because if you go to UK, go to US, you see some small party, winning in their own community, and they will continue to actually, because they're looking at who can really perform, not who belongs to which of the party. So if we can have a free and fair election in our local government, I think that will help us to have those parties winning some positions.
Now, these statistics would shock a lot of persons. It's a very key statistics in determining some of the votes in the US. We're told this morning that 82 million voters in the United States cast their votes through mail.
82 million.
Now, you look at the demographics in Nigeria, the number of total registered voters in the 2023 election, 96.5 million, out of which a lot of voter apathy affected turnout. But almost a slim margin in terms of that voting population have been given the opportunity to cast their franchise from the comfort of their homes through mail. Do you think that Nigeria going forward can begin to prepare itself for this electronic system of voting?
I think, first of all, I think it's about system. I think we need to get the system right. Because I recall there are some states, there are some countries like China or maybe India, whereby if you don't vote, it's like a criminal offense. You must cast your vote. But making it convenient is what you actually need. Look at the way things are being difficult now. So it could be anywhere and cast off. Remember, something really, there's an enabler that makes that possible. That could be identity, right? So if you have your own identity, maybe my name is what I will use to vote. But do we all have it? How well is it? Are we managing it? I think that's the major thing. So we must create a system that will be at comfort of your home and vote. You must not go and cast physically. You remember a lot of things that happened. In fact, I was part of the last presidential election. I was monitoring election in some local governments. And look at the tension, the suffering in the queue, a lot of things that happen. I now see that we are not moving ahead. So we must make sure we change our way of voting. I think with time, it's just about planning. Now we have come on board with BVAS and an electronic declaration of vote. We can still move to that level whereby I can be in comfort of my house and cast my vote without fear of corruption. Because that's another thing. There's also rigging that we are always complaining about. So rigging is another thing that we need to fight. But I think even electronics will make rigging difficult, because with software that we have now, if you cast twice, there will be red flag. If you are not qualified, it will be a red flag, and it will, with a lot of ERP, enterprise resource planning, and it can just bring everything out clean and clear. I think we should go that route.
Now, let's also, in perspective, look at one of the publications we earlier looked at, the Guardian newspaper, which juxtaposes some of the challenges in the Nigerian electoral system. Whilst we applauding the system in the United States, back here in Nigeria, the Guardian says it is cash and carry. Public engagement debates are fading as vote buying rules pose. Now, unlike in the Americas, where in the build-up to the election, like you said in your opening comments, we find the parties come out with their candidates telling us their ideologies and manifestos, their heated debates, the television stations invite these candidates for debates. But here in Nigeria, we place very little emphasis on debates and public engagement.
You will recall that Trump was on debate with Biden. That was what made Biden to withdraw, because he thinks with the way this position, the party
and his
told
health
him
concerns.
And the party told him that sorry, you cannot go ahead. It's not his own decision. People think it's his own decision. It's party. And I said, no, you have to step down. Then Kamala Harris have to go. I can tell you, even our president did not attend debate. Go and check it. Even in Edo, the winner now did not attend debate. I even applaud people of Ekiti, because you could see the PDP candidate and APC candidate came out and slug it out. In fact, when I watch the debate, you can't even say this is a winner, this is a loser. They are all winner. It depends on now people's. But it's good you listen to people that are going to lead you. You understand their ideology, their processes, and you know that they are in sound mind and sound health. Not that you just say, at a point, even people, the leaders in Edo was the one behind. I mean, speaking on behalf of the governorship candidate, which is not a good one. So for me, I think in as much as you want to go to public office, you must also subject yourself to public debate, because that would have shown people why they should vote for you. Maybe it's because most time we think it's do or die affair in Nigeria. Maybe that's why we think don't let us go and speak, because when we speak they will do that. But you need to come and speak. And I must tell people now, and that's why most of us must engage in politics, because if you don't engage in politics, you discover that those people who are not as knowledgeable as you that think politics is dirty, they will keep on ruling you, and you have to queue behind whatever they decide to say. So I think we should go beyond our political party, political institutions through INEC should now start robust ideology. There should be an ideology that, okay, you even recall during the NRC, SDP, Tofa, and Abiola, you could see there is you can say, oh, this is the ideology of this one, this is the ideology of this one. But now you can hardly, in fact, PDP, APC, most of us will agree that they are bed of the same feather, because anybody any day can decide to move to where actually party pays him, and pays in terms of the advantage they want to get from it. It's not because of their own ideology.
Now, then, leaving that issue, a second issue in the news this morning is some reforms in Nigeria's education system. And with a new Minister of Education following the rejig of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabinet, the Minister Alausa is proposing a reversal of the 18-year age limit that was formerly imposed by the outgone Minister, Professor Tahir Mamman. Now, this means that those of 16 years of age are eligible to gain admission into tertiary institutions. And we looked at that publication on 2 newspapers earlier. Do you think that this education policy rejig would have a significant impact? Some people also blame it as part of the reasons why Professor Tahir Mamman was shown the door.
Right, that's what I was about to say, because I follow Professor Tahir Mamman a lot, and I was thinking he's one of the best ministers during this short time that he used. But I tried to figure out why was he relieved, out of the office. So I was trying to, but now that I saw that this new minister, what he actually proposed, the elite does not really agree with him. I think it's elite problem, because most of them think if I'm capable, I have the capacity to send my child to school, why will you say age is a problem? And you recall that we now have a lot of private university in Nigeria, and it's going to affect private university, because if you go to private university, you see this category more in private university compared to public university. I think that's part of what caused problem. Then coming back to the decision, where I as an educationist, I think we are suffering with what is called policy somersaults in Nigeria, which you have to review. Recall that Professor Tahir Mamman did not actually bring this. It was there on the table already. It has been there but not implemented. So he now opts to implement this policy. That's just what he did. But with what we are seeing now, that means the majority. Because as I was coming, I also listened to a radio program. A retired director from Ministry of Education said it's wrong to reverse that, because most children that are going there, they don't have the maturity to totally stand the learning process. But now, as it is now, maybe the world is changing, let's see how it works. But I know in some other climes too, most people, because I recall during that conversation, people come from UK and whatever, that most Nigerians even usually work on the age of their children, because they will not take them even abroad. But as it were, it has been reversed. We hope government will see way of protecting these children that are not of age when they get to university.
Now this issue of 16, 18 years, let's also remember that it's tied to the law and the fact that an 18-year-old is considered responsible for their action. Much like we're now hearing the case of the hashtag end bad governance minors.
Right.
The age is now a case. People are saying that they're not up to the age to be tried in the court, and it's supposed to have been a juvenile trial system. If these students gaining admission at 16 years are unfortunately involved in some court activities or
At
are
16 or
apprehended,
17.
we'll probably be coming back to say that they are not.
They're minor, and that's a serious issue because as at 18 you are responsible for a lot of things that you do. But I think we should just go back to correct this. We should go back to primary education. I think that's where the error started from, because if you can say, okay, what age will you start
Primary
primary
school.
school, that would have helped, because if you start primary school at maybe 5 6, but now even a toddler is being showing way to primary education system. So I think that's where we should correct the primary secondary school. If you have adjust that age, and you finish your secondary school at 12, primary school at 12, by age 18 you'll be completing your secondary school. So we must find a way to actually then, according to the Alausa, the new minister, he also said JAMB is a factor too. Maybe at JAMB, if you are not 16 you cannot write JAMB. So if you are 16 and writing JAMB at 16, probably before the result will come, before you get to school, it will be around 17.
Do you think that JAM should also consider extending the validity of the JAM exams?
Right, I think that's very, very key. If I wrote JAM this year and I could not get admission, I should be opportunity to have at least 2 years to use it before it gets expired. I think that would be a good suggestion if they will, because it's not easy to write JAM anyway, and different schools with different systems. Some schools may say this year we are not admitting, or we are shifting our admission. So sometimes if you can be allowed to use it, every school also have internal exam. If you can allow to bring maybe 2 years period to really write, that should be fine, because most schools now may not work with the immediate admission of JAM.
Now, another angle to this conversation in forging a new educational policy, a lot of focus is on students. The outgoing minister was also looking at teacher training with the establishment of digital teacher training centers, even here in the FCT and across states in Nigeria. Do you think that Mr. Alausa should also prioritize more on teacher training in going forward?
As much as it is government is a continuum. I think there is nothing stopping from taking the good and maybe adjusting the bad. And that's the case of CBN too. So I expect him to look at that and read, because I can tell you training is very key, and I can tell you even our curriculum is obsolete. That's part of what is Mama is actually doing. I can tell you our education system is the bane of our unemployment, because most of what we are studying does not really give us how to start a job. Okay, let's look at it like this. Polytechnic is made for what? Technical, right? Why university is much more of, so a graduate of university is expected to be able to even employ people, from the style of, but if you study physics, for instance, you may be looking for where to become a teacher. But if you study physics electronics, immediately you are finishing, you are starting one small electronics where you can fix one or two, even fixing a phone, another digital material, so you can fix them. And so we must look at whereby once you graduate, you could see that even every school now do entrepreneur as mandatory. But how has it reflect? Because when you study business admin, you only study it business admin. Ideally you're supposed to attach a business admin in maritime, business admin in agriculture, business admin in digital. You can now, once you are graduating, you are now looking at area of business and start doing something. So we must rejig, review, and make sure, and that digital training center is very key, because teacher must be trained first before they can transfer that knowledge to the students.
Well, in keeping with more issues in the news this morning, the hashtag end bad governance protesters and minors, 119 of them yesterday were pardoned. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa also talked about the need for them to be of good behavior moving forward. But human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana SAN, is advocating that their state governments rehabilitate them beyond just reintegration into society, but also engaging them in school. Now, we earlier saw that publication on the Daily Independent, and let's refer to it again. On the Daily Independent earlier this morning, you see the headline story, hashtag end bad governance protests. Go and be responsible citizens, Tinubu tells 119 pardoned suspects. Urges Kaduna Kanu governments to anchor their rehabilitation, reintegration. Their release demonstrates Tinubu's compassion for the masses, says the governors. And now, this has been one of the most controversial stories. First of all, persons were asking, how did it beat the attention of the presidency that those minors were incarcerated for more than 90 days?
Right. I think there is a serious gap that we must look at, and any embarrassment that is caused either by police or by any gap that created would be president's fault, because that's what we are going to say. First and foremost, is it bad to protest? That's one question. Is it not our right to protest? Has even the president never protest before? You know, protest is people's rights. They must allow us to protest. Now the second one is that having arrested these people, there must, I've seen that Nigerian police have tried to get a department now that will learn how to handle minor. Don't they see that these people are minor? Why you take them to that correctional center at that age of 13, 14? And you also see when they still get to court, you could see what the spokesperson of police was saying, that some of them are married, some of them are this. You could see also what the lawyer of police is saying, that they are trying to frame the faints and what have you. But we could see that these people are actually, I think there's
malnourished
they are poorly fed. You know, that's very, very, even, let's even look at normal prisoners. Are they not so supposed to be fed? Let alone these malnourished children. So I think there's a serious gap that someone needs to be asked a question in this case. Then let's look at what the presidency is trying to do. I think they want to shine out of these children. That's what I think. Because if they want to shine, what were you looking at for good 3 months until they bring them to court? No, and a lot of embarrassment now came thereafter. So I think government need to also ask questions about who, because if they have bring them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even a week, why should people be in custody beyond a week? And you didn't try them, let alone minor. I think that's where the gap. And now government is trying to shine, because I saw they buy them clothes, they took them to. And some people are now saying, okay, so now people need to go and commit before you now celebrate them. Right, that's another thing. So, but for Falana to say those states should rehabilitate, I think it's very good they rehabilitated. You know why? People that have gone to correctional center seem to be more hardened when they come back. So I think it's important. They actually,
despite the renaming of our prisons to correctional centers.
Yes, they are much more hardened. So, and that's why they need to rehabilitate them. It's important they don't just release them to the society. And I could see that a lot of governors even say they will give them scholarship. You know. But the thing is, must we suffer before we enjoy this our government? Must there be a challenge, a negative thing that happened before? So, but for me, I think government is just using these children to shine.
Now, away from the issue of the released 119 end bad governance protesters and minors who have been released to Kaduna and Kano state governments, another national issue of concern, this time around affecting the national power grid. Earlier, we're told by one of the dailies that this is the 10th time this year that the national grid has collapsed. We also hear reports that it has also degenerated to 0 megawatts. But the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, has only called it a partial disruption. Now, we also heard some persons also advocating that we move beyond having a national grid to having a centralized super power grid.
Right.
This issue of national grid collapse is becoming what many would call unbecoming in the Nigerian parlance.
Right.
How does the minister and all the persons saddled with this fix it or nip it in the bud?
Well, for me, I think there is need for us to also unbundle Transmission Company of Nigeria. Because if you recall, we don't have issue with generation. We don't have issue with distribution. The problem we have is transmission. Which is the grid, and it belongs to government. So according to the minister, I said it's going to decentralize, which I think if we have it by region, right, that will help. Maybe if it collapse, it won't affect the other part. You could recall what the northern part, especially Kaduna, actually faced. Let's look at the economic loss. I was in Kaduna and I have to be in an hotel, and I discovered that they have to run the generator set throughout. And you know how much it is or petrol cost now. So it's a very serious issue that we must look, and it's affecting our economic performance in Nigeria, because once there is no power, it becomes a serious problem, especially for small businesses. Even a barber shop now cannot afford to buy fuel to service his machine or what have you. So the thing is, we must go beyond the rhetorics. We must be sincere. How can a country of 230 million cannot generate more than 3 1,000 megawatt, and that 3,000 megawatt does not in my area. We are told that we are in band A. Can tell you from these little dry season signs they have returned to normalcy, where they will just took the light and they will start bringing it every time, so that they will say they have we are on band A. I think it's a serious issue. I think if Tinubu government can only solve this issue of electricity, Nigeria will celebrate him. And that's why I find it difficult to see our past president not being able to lay their hand on what thing they have actually solved. We have to have that culture of making things work in our country, because every business is tied to that electricity issue. So I think we should unbundle more. Then there is this unbundling that has happened already, but there must be investment from states and from federal government. I noticed that Governor Mba of Enugu is trying to have they have their own commission for electricity and whatever. But the thing is, how much have you invested? You must invest about 50% before you can see people coming to invest. So I expect other states or other regions to go ahead to also invest in electricity generation, distribution, and transmission.
Now, what happens to the Electricity Act that President Bola Tinubu signed into law? It has empowered states, but it almost feels as though it's some bureaucratic procedure.
No, it's open, but the investment is very huge. So that's why I said states must be ready to invest in that area, because if you don't invest, people will not come. They are calling international community to come and invest, but it's not a small thing. You must start it and give a possible sign that things can actually happen. Even let's look at the one in which state is it? Okay, this Alex Oti state.
Yes.
Is it Abia?
Abia.
Now you remember there is one. It has not also commenced because it needs a lot of investment. So electricity is not what you can just invest in. So you must create that enabling environment. But with that, if government can insist, federal government can insist, all states should go, all three states can come together. Actually, I was even expecting NDDC to actually, but NDDC is changed now. It's not in one environment again, and we now have changed it to Ministry of Regional, regional ministry, whereby it is now region. So if each region can actually work it out, we must unbundle and decentralize the generation of electricity. I think that will give us a better way out.
Now, we're also looking at comments coming in from the FCCPC this morning, making headlines on the Business Times, and it's from the angle of consumer protection. A lot of Nigerians who find themselves in the classification of Band A feel that they have been done an injustice. There's also been the minimal downward review of the electricity tariff from the initial 225 naira per kilowatt hour. It is now at 209.23 kilowatts per hour. But let's refer to that headline story before we get Dr. Aliyu's thoughts. Now, on the Business Times earlier, we saw the FCPC issue a call to order to discos, saying that they should make electricity affordable, accessible, and reliable, tasking the discos on consumer involvement in electricity bans classification.
Right. I think it's quite interesting that we see FCCPC saying this, because a major issue is accessibility and availability. As we are talking, some people do not still have what we call meter to actually work. Then there's what we call capex and opex, where we call capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Now, this same AEDC or discos generally, they have their own operational expenditure. Can they tell us what they are doing for people? Because you recall that now they are making a whole lot. It's times 3 of what they are making before. With introduction of Band A, what are they actually expending money for? If a pole fall in your area, you community take the responsibility. If you have downtime, you have to call them overtime before they do. So we must start, because for me, discos only come with portfolio. They don't come with any investment. Even the meter that we have, remember, it is said that they should give us meter, or we should buy meter, and it will be reduced from there. I've bought some meters. Up till now, there's no sign that they are repaying me back the money. So I think it's beyond FCCPC, it's NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. They should do something to make sure that people are actually benefiting. They are not shortchanging, because it appears that they are tilting towards people that are supposed to regulate at the expense of the consumers. So consumers need to be protected, and we must have affordability and accessibility, because if it's not there, it will also reflect on our economy, and that's why development is pretty difficult in our country.
Now, we're looking at some statistics the other day, and we're told that the total number of electricity consumers in Nigeria stand somewhere around 12.82 million Nigerians. And out of that number, only 5.1 are metered. The president was also making a case for disbursements in June's FAC allocations, saying that of the amounts disbursed, 9% is supposed to serve as seed funds under the presidential metering initiative. And this would span for the next 3 years. But do you think at that pace in the next 3 years, this is sufficient enough to cater for unmetered customers who continue to suffer from arbitrary billing?
I want to disagree because I was expecting president to say with this our new act on electricity, every state take this, go and start something, because that's what will solve the problem. You know, if you go to a country like South Africa, they have 50,000 megawatts, and what is their population, right? But for Nigeria, we don't have, even if you still go to South Africa, if they see that you are using any electricity that is off grid, maybe solar generator, they still give you stipends to appreciate you that you didn't bring more tension, more pressure on it. So we must start having that initiation of making sure that every state take responsibility. If not, if you are still doing this national thing, it's going to give us issue. We may not have a way out in 20 years, but with this unbundling, allowing each state, allow each even an industry, a place like Iduyad can decide to generate their power. A place like Ariara Market, a place like Nnewi can decide to do their own generation distribution, because you can now use gas to power. It must not be hydro. You know, before you must look for where there is water, but now you can use gas and water. So I think government need to insist that each state must take responsibility in terms of even railway, in terms of, if you look at Lagos, because Lagos now have their own rail, about 2 of it, so you cannot have, you know, intra-city movement. So we must be able to, a state like Lagos state should have their own at least 3, 4, 5 power substation, not only 2 that they have, because there are too many. Even a place like Kano should have independent. Kano is now sharing with a lot. Look at FCT with about 5 states sharing AEDC. There is no way it can be sufficient. We must find a way to add more so that we can really survive well with electricity.
Now, away from the power grid, this issue has now been blamed on vandalism in northern states, where we're told that the 330 kVA transmission lines were vandalized. In keeping with the NSCDC and other security outfits who are saddled with protecting public infrastructure, how does Nigeria optimize the need to actually be seen to protect these infrastructures from vandalism?
Right, we need to automate, and we need to go with technology. You know, in a same climb, in some climb, right? Not let me say we are seen to, whereby once you just touch anything, there's a monitoring somewhere that is looking at all the power line. That's the way to go, because you cannot stop these vandals. They want to continue to vandalize, especially if you look at it, was traced to those Boko Haram and what have you. So, but if you have a way of doing it before they even tamper it, you are there already. So until we do that, and that's why I agree with that decentralization, so that you can monitor and know that, okay, for Southwest we don't have vandal issue, for Northeast that's where we have vandal, then they cannot have a focus. But when you have everything connected together, it will bring a lot of issues. So I think we should look into that, and we should find a way to monitor those things beyond just sitting in our office and, you know, expecting weirdness. You know, when it's just like we are being reactive, we should be what? Proactive.
Now, in terms of some of the issues with terrorism, one of the newspapers mirrored in the situation in Sokoto State, where allegedly there is now a new terror group known as the Lakurawas. The Daily Times had that story. Let's just revisit the front page as we look to conclude our conversation this morning in that perspective. You'd find the headline, Sokoto government raises alarm over infiltration of new terror group, Lakurawas sect currently operational in 5 local government areas. In some aspects of the media, Nigeria is winning the war against banditry and terrorism. Others are also highlighting some new groups that are emerging and how they are successful in states like Sokoto, currently operational in 5 local governments, and their operations are unheated. The president has also moved to promote a senior ranking military official, like we saw on the papers this morning. Many are asking, how does that translate into this war in winning banditry and terrorism?
Right. First and foremost, it appeared to be lucrative to engage in banditry in Nigeria, because we have not seen people being, you know, really bring to justice. Most of them, we even hear that some are even pardoned. You know, when you take it with glove and you have to take it with, you know, iron hand, and make sure that at every discovery you hit them and hit them very, and that's why such thing is actually growing. And we should also blame those state governors. What are they looking at? Now that you have identified them, try to really deal with them and make sure you finish them, so as not to really have a lot of impact on the Nigerians. Then looking at the promotion, I think if there's any other time, this is the best time to keep promoting Nigerian soldiers, because they are in the forefront of fighting the war, and they are sacrificing a whole lot. So for me, I think it's a good one. Perhaps I suspect that if that man is not promoted, it may lead to retirement of some soldiers. You know, when you have when you want to bring somebody as the at the head of affair, it must go beyond other people's rank. You recall when Lagbaja and Co came, a lot of soldiers have to what, get retired, you know, without getting to the expected age. I think that's what actually happened. So it's what they have been always been doing. So it's better to promote him than to retire people that could be his mate or under him.
Now, this is as much as we can discuss this morning with local stories, and I must say thank you to you, Dr. Aliyu, for taking our time to objectively analyze these issues in the news with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.